Thank you very much for participating in this forum. Today, I would like to talk about the dark side of VS Code. And our analytical team carried out an analysis of APT groups in their malicious use of VS Code. We've looked at artifact detection and defense methods. And I am from Itochu Cyber and Intelligence. My name is Hazuru, and beside me is Mr. Sasada. And we have only 20 minutes, so I will not go into detail in introducing ourselves. Please forgive me. In regard to today's agenda, there will be some slides where we'll just be showing, and we would appreciate it if you would refrain from taking any recording of this presentation whatsoever. That would be appreciated. Now, I'd like to give you an overall picture. Today, we would like to look at the series of attacks shown in the red area where abuse of VS Code took place. In regard to the other activities, there's in OS Bulletin 2023, there are materials, so if you're interested, please refer to that material. And in regard to this case, we were looking at September 2023, where the attack was observed. And there was VS Code functions that were worried to be abused, but this is probably the first time in the world where there is an actual record of abuse of VS Code. And in regard to the link for the report VB 2023, we have shown the link here. In regard to VS Code, there may be some of you who are not familiar with VS Code, so I'd like to briefly explain about what VS Code is about. Visual Studio Code was released by Microsoft in 2015 as an open source software, as a code editor, and it has many functions, and it is possible for third parties to provide extensions, so it is a very modern tool. And in our case, the developers are using this, and so in my experience, productivity is undermined if VS Code is not available. And according to Google Trend, we have looked at the degree of attention paid towards each of the editors, and you can see in blue VS Code, and you can see that VS Code has a very large share. And in this regard, we have not made any comparison of this with any intention in mind. Just a simple comparison is what we meant to do. And we'll be dealing with the function of remote development. In regard to what remote development is about, it means remote hosts and containers are connected to carry out development. And in regard to how this feature is used, mainly the environment for development that is already set up can be distributed, or there could be the platforms for development that could be used for different operating systems is used. And the principle is that VS Code is used as a client, and SSH or proxy is used as a tunnel to connect. And then VS Code is connected with the destination VS Code, and then file manipulation, debugging, remote host manipulation through commands become possible through this process. And when it comes to the tunneling method for remote host, there is a proxy service called development tunnels. And this is a proxy service that is provided by Microsoft, and on Azure it is apparently hosted. And it may be difficult to understand what dev tunnels is about, so we'd like to show you a demonstration of how this is used in remote development. We'll show the full screen. Here's the remote host Windows side on left, and the tunnel command is sent, and then with GitHub, the authentication is carried out. And then on the lower right-hand side, there's a window where you can see the rack the MAC on a local basis. And in order to do authentication, code is input. Next, the remote VS Code is connected with a URL. So the URL is input into the browser so that remote access can be possible. This was used for authentication in GitHub, and this is selected. And this has been established, so there's a test.file that is generated for the test to be written into. And then there's a time lag, but we have the test.text that has been created, and it's the same as that within the Mac. And in remote host, if a text file editing is carried out, then in the remote Mac computer as well, you can confirm. And it's possible to open PowerShell consoles. And with the get content command, it'll be possible to browse the contents of the file. And it's also possible to take advantage of calc.exe. In this way, through dev tunnels on the remote host, development work can be possible.
So now from this time point onward, I'd like to talk about remote tunnel detection and protection. And this is the domain list which is necessary to establish a connection to the dev tunnels, which is described in the Microsoft documents. And by blocking the communication to these domains, we confirm that remote development cannot work. And in companies making use of VSCode in their normal development, we recommend to detect this based upon context or block it. And for instance, a sales department subnet that doesn't use development tools such as VSCode, or from the production subnet, you'll be able to detect the communication to dev tunnels, and you'll be able to control misdetection. Next is a process detection. And in this case, from the VSCode of the client, you open the PowerShell prompt, and a ping command is executed. And this is a process tree on the remote host side. And as you can see, code.exe, from code.exe, node.exe is launched, and that is to show the status of VSCode. And this node.exe has some specific path. And I cannot see it, but below .VSCode, there are some server and random names, and then Node.js. I think this is quite unique to VSCode path. So looking at the whole codex file name or drive letters may change. So looking at those specific codex or unique codex file names or paths will be able to detect the Node.exe, and that's also recommended. So far, having heard, you may consider that VSCode itself may be malicious. However, this is a tool to support productivity in modern development. And remote development itself has very good advantages and benefits. But recently, because of malicious VSCode extensions or library, the development terminals may be infected by malware. But using remote development, those will act on the remote host. And in that sense, we'll be able to actually use this for the prevention of infection. So how to safely use remote development of VSCode? Personally, I would recommend you to choose SSH tunnel and dev container, those remote development features. SSH tunnel is, as name speaks, the tunnel is created. So you'll be able to control at the protocol level by FW, IP, and port. And dev container, it is a procedure to connect to local host. Therefore, it will be complete within the container. So here's a conclusion. The VSCode that risks have been pointed out, having actually abused by APT. Remote development can be maliciously used as RAT, and depending upon connection, via dev tunnel proxy, control can be possible. VSCode is an indispensable tool in modern development. Therefore, before controlling VSCode, please consider alternatives like SSH tunnel or dev container. And if you are using already VSCode, please add context and make efforts of detection. Then you'll be able to reduce misdetection. Now we have some time left, so I'd like to move on to the appendix part of my presentation. Persistence of remote development could be possible. We found it in our investigation. And we showed the demo, and once it completes, a connection is no longer available. However, by making a command of continuing this service, code tunnel service install, then there is a feature available that remote development can be persistent. Therefore, please also include this in your hunting efforts. So that's all about our presentation. Thank you very much for your attention.